And we are back. One more set of matchups to break down here on Testosterone Fantasy Sports, MCN6, #1 fantasy sports prognostication show. You check it out every single week, Saturday nights at 9:30. It's Jeff and Jesse on a weekly basis. This week, Jason Powell in the house with us, Jason Powell of fanball.com. Pleased to have you on the show, Jason. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Hey, my pleasure.
It's been great to have you. We've got to start this next set of matchups with the New England Patriots. They welcome the Miami Dolphins to town. When we start talking about New England, yeah, Tom Brady this, Tom Brady that, but you're the guy who in the preseason in Fanballs magazine said Randy Moss was the #1 fantasy wide receiver. I know a lot of your cohorts over there at Fanball gave you crap about that, but man, you look pretty damn genius right now.
A lot of people gave me a hard time about that one. I remember some of the magazine release parties we had. A lot of readers were coming up, are you serious? And but it just made too much sense to me. I knew if the guy could stay healthy with a great quarterback like that, the sky was the limit. So it's worked out, but I definitely had some other picks that didn't work out so well. So I'm not going to go toot my own horn too much.
I think I have an idea of how you came up with that. Okay, put your right hand like this.
Okay.
Football Buddha. Football Buddha.
Exactly. Well, Randy Moss has been a stellar play for fantasy owners all season. Was a little bit disappointing in the playoffs last week, but here we start getting into that pinch, guys. Do the Patriots continue their pursuit for the undefeated season? Does Randy play a whole game here? Do you start Randy? You got to start Brady. Tell us what you do with the Patriots conundrum right now, Jason.
Start them all. Randy Moss is going after Jerry Rice's all-time single-season touchdown record. They're certainly going to try to get him at least a couple in this game, is my guess. Lawrence Maroney looking a lot better last week, finally getting the rock. You have to, depending on what you may have found somebody who's been a lot more consistent. So you at least need to consider who you've been going with rather than just plug Maroney back in, because it's Belichick. You never know when he's just going to say, let's just pass the ball 60 times today. But I think you start all of your Patriots with the possible exception of Maroney, and I even think he's a good play. It just depends what you have on your bench.
Bench all your Finns, Jeff?
Yeah, well, if you've got Finns that you're trying to depend on, you're probably in your consolation bowl. So
right.
You want to go with – now, I think that there's a good chance Ben Watson might not suit up for this game, so you'll need a different option at tight end. And I played against where I know a guy who I play with, and he had Watson and had to play Greg Olsen and lost by 6.
Ooh,
so that's Greg Olsen right there. I got 3 points against our team.
Yeah, basically like Jason's saying here, roll out all of your Patriots. This game, the Dolphins did get a win last week, so they won't be totally defeated going into this game, which is kind of what I was hoping for. And I know a lot of the Patriots fan we wanted to see the team in search of the perfect season and the team in search of the not-so-perfect season. But the Dolphins got a W on the board last week. They aren't going to put 2 wins together.
It seems like if those 2 teams would have met in that situation, like a black hole would have formed. Being a long-time, old-time Dolphins fan, I was happy to see that. So screw you guys, because the Dolphins needed to get it.
Well, the team the Dolphins got it done against was the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this week, they travel to Seattle to face another team that really sucked it up last week and did terribly. Now, Seattle is a playoff-bound squad. They're playing here against Baltimore. You'd think that Seattle would have a little bit more to play for, although it seems like their playoff spot is pretty much locked up. So what do you do with the Seahawks here in this matchup, Jason?
You basically ignore their running backs because Baltimore still has a very good run defense. But the thing to keep in mind about the Ravens is that secondary has not been nearly as good as it was in the past.
Right.
The Seahawks are a pass-happy team now. They've got all those wide receivers. I expect a big day from Hasselbeck, and basically the same as what you've been getting before the Carolina game from those Seattle receivers. Kind of spread it all out. Maybe get a touchdown from 2, even 3 of those guys.
As far as Baltimore goes, they don't have a whole lot that I'm interested in on the offensive side of the football. Their defense isn't dynamic enough to warrant playing, in my opinion, anymore. I think they're more of a backup type defense. However, you might have to roll with them. In that situation, maybe you'll get like an interception, a couple sacks. I don't think they'll take it to the house because their secondary has been pretty injured. But and then also their running game, I don't really like McGahee to do anything better than what he's done, which is very average lately.
Yeah, McGahee has definitely not had the season that some of the people out there thought he would have once that move to Baltimore happened. But look, Baltimore's squad last year was very inflated coming off of an incredible season. We saw this coming. We knew Baltimore was going to fall. We just didn't know how far and how fast. But supposedly their coaching regime is going to be intact and should be back next year, so they'll try to reload in the offseason. But for now, avoid most of the Ravens' options.
One thing really quick, I just want your real quick impression about how do you like Troy Smith, man?
He's too short to play quarterback in the NFL, don't you think?
I don't know. I don't know about too short, but I just don't know that he has a talent at this point. Need to see more of the guy, and I wish they'd give him a chance.
Interesting.
They have nothing to lose at this point.
That's what I thought too. You know, maybe he could become a spark for them in a couple years. I mean, let's face it, there aren't a whole lot of good pass throwers in that town to begin with, so
that's for sure.
May as well give him a shot.
Yeah, and McNair's career is done.
And I got to disagree with you guys real quick. Start McGahee if you normally would. Seattle's defense is solid but not spectacular, and I'm not as down on McGahee. He's actually I didn't have very high expectations coming into the year. He's actually exceeded my expectations. So if you normally start McGahee, I say go for it, even though these guys say don't.
Okay, the Jets traveling to Tennessee to play the Titans. Now, the Jets are a team that has really struggled throughout the season. Thomas Jones was a guy I was pretty high on. I know Jeff was as well coming into the season. He's definitely caught the grizzle all year long, not getting the touches that a number one back should get, in my opinion. And Tennessee, they're kind of flip-floppy. You never know exactly where they're going to go. Looking at this matchup, Jeff, are there any plays for fantasy owners here in Week 16?
Well, you know, it's been interesting for me to see how Lindell White's done the last couple of weeks. It seems like every time I don't think he's going to do much, then he goes out and does something. I think he had around 90 yards last week, so didn't get into the end zone. But the Jets' defense isn't that great, in my opinion, so I think Lindell White makes a fairly good play.
And you know, Vince Young, you never know what you're going to get from the guy.
Yeah.
It's so hard to start him from week to week because one week he might get you a couple rushing touchdowns, the next week he might get you nothing. So, I mean, I guess if you normally use him, you probably don't have a choice, but I don't think it's a bad matchup for him, but you just never know which Vince Young is going to show up, like I say.
I'm interested, too, to see what the Jets' passing game has to have. I mean, I don't think that we're going to see Kellen McRib, you know, he hurt his ribs and stuff. So if Pennington's in there, I kind of like his connection with Coles.
Denver at San Diego on Monday night, a game that many fantasy owners across the landscape of the United States will be watching with tremendous intent, guys. Last year, the number one player in all of fantasy obviously was LaDainian Tomlinson. He was stellar all season long. Now, this year kind of flew under the radar. There were different times throughout the season where, you know, people were saying Adrian Peterson had eclipsed him. Of course, the great quarterback play that we had seen throughout the year this year had a lot of fantasy owners with the Tom Brady's and the Tony Romos flying high. But now here, when it's crunch time for fantasy owners, I start looking across my 6 leagues that I play in, and the guy that has Tomlinson is in the championship game of 5 of my 6 contests. So I know that this Monday nighter at home against the Denver defense that's, I believe, still at the bottom of the league against the run, Tomlinson, in my opinion, is going to bring home some titles for people this year, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I think there's a really great chance that he goes off here on Monday night. Tomlinson loves going off or playing on Monday night. And against Denver, who isn't very good against the rush at all, they're probably averaging like still around 130 yards on the ground or something like that. And with LT wanting to get that rushing title, he's only 6 yards behind Willie Parker for that right now. I just think that LT goes nuts, and I hope that I can win with him and beat him at the same time.
Let me throw this in. Phillip Rivers has actually thrown a couple of touchdown passes, I believe, in his last 3 games against Denver. So don't be too down on him just because of Champ Bailey.
What's up with Antonio Gates?
Back injury. I think he has a bad back, and I mean, this could be the week that he gets it together, assuming they don't do what they've done in the past, which is stick Champ Bailey on him. I don't know that that's going to happen now that they have Chambers. I think that might open things up for Gates a little bit.
Yeah, you got to stick with Gates.
Any plays here on the Denver side of things, Jason?
You know, Cutler's actually been playing well. San Diego can still be beat through the air. I know Cromartie's having a nice year, but just in general, that's not a great pass defense. It's not as solid of a defense as it has been in the past. I don't really trust anything in that backfield, especially when 1 week Shanahan will tell you he's going to start Travis Henry and he turns around and starts Selvin Young anyway. It just makes no sense. I avoid that Denver backfield.
You like to call that the Shanahan job, right?
Yeah,
Jesse?
the Shanahan job.
I really like Brandon Marshall. I think that he's a good number 1 target for this team at this point in the season. And I like the fact for him that Javon Walker should be on the field because that will loosen up the defense for Marshall, who could probably have about 100 yards and a touchdown.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I know I got LT rolling in a championship game on that Monday night. I hope they leave him in for at least 3 quarters because I think in that time period, LT is going to bring home the hardware. And you know that's what we're all about here on Testosterone Fantasy Sports, helping you bring home the hardware. So we want to invite you onto our Fat Chat after the show is over. TestosteroneSports.com will help you with your matchup-related questions. We'll just talk, hang out, chill, whatever you want to bring to the table. You are invited. TestosteroneFantasySports.com. Check it out online. We'll be back for one final segment of matchups after this.